The next superb, excellent, greatest, must-own, must-have clone from the brand of Khadlaj, that's called Zayaan Gold. Or is it? Well, let's find out that today. Hey guys, I'm George, the nice smelling gentleman, and it's time for your dose of some fragrance content. It's also time for a fragrance review, this time around for a scent from the brand of Khadlaj, which is called Zayaan Gold. This is a pretty new release that's seen quite a bit of exposure in the past month or so. Quite a few fellow content creators, fragrance influencers have talked about this fragrance. I've also mentioned it a couple of times in some of my videos, but I've never really done a full review of this one, so it's time to cover this fragrance in its own full dedicated review. As usual, I'm going to show you the presentation, the packaging, I'm going to talk about the scent profile, how this fragrance performs, how close it feels to the original one, and at the end of the day, at the end of the video, I'm going to tell you my honest opinion on whether this is worth of spending your hard-earned money on. Let's take a very quick look at the packaging and the presentation. The fragrance has this black colored box with golden accents. Now I don't know if you can see it, but there's a bit of a pattern on the actual bottle, that on the actual box actually, that looks a bit like a cameo type of pattern. The important stuff about this one, the bottle size is 100 milliliters, the concentration is EDP, and the bottles my bottle is was produced in July of 2025. You got a sticker of authenticity and all that stuff, and then this is the way that the bottle looks. Now this bottle wise, the design of the bottle has nothing to do with the original fragrance that this has been inspired by. The cap is plastic, but it has heavy metallic coating and it's quite heavy. It's a snug fit. Overall, the bottle is quite heavy considering that it's not very big. But the great thing about this one is that it has a superb pressurized sprayer. I'm going to spray it on my hand so I can talk about the scent itself, and I'm going to tell you what this smells very similar to. The fragrance that this is very similar to is Jean-Paul Gaultier's Le Male Elixir Absolu, the newest flanker in that lineup. A fragrance which I really like, but especially initially when it was released, I felt like it was a bit of a money grab because it smelled quite similar to Le Male Elixir. And now we're starting to see more and more clones of Le Male Elixir Absolu. The first major one was Afnan's 9 PM Elixir, a fragrance that initially I didn't like very much, but nowadays I actually enjoy quite a lot. And now we see this one, Zayaan Gold from Khadlaj. I can bet that probably in the near future we're going to see more, Elixir Absolu clones. But this one is actually a pretty decent clone when it comes to the scent. This smells very similar to Le Male Elixir Absolu, but feels just a little bit different. Now for starters, Le Male Elixir Absolu overall in the air just feels a little bit more spicy. This opens up with a hint of spiciness, a lot of sweetness, some fruitiness, and a hint of a boozy note as well. I think there's a cognac note or something like that that's been used in the opening of this fragrance. Overall, this smells nice, pleasant, soft, and slightly powdery in the opening, very fruity, a little bit dark. Definitely a fragrance that's more orientated towards the colder months, and you can immediately pick that thing up in the air when you spray, Zayaan Gold. The quality is nice, there's no harshness or anything like that in the opening. The more this fragrance dries down, the sweeter it becomes. You start to feel less and less of that booziness from the opening, less and less of that fruity sweetness in the opening. The dry down is mostly a combination of the sweet notes like vanillic sweetness, some amber, tonka bean. The whole fragrance turns a little bit powdery on its dry down, and overall this smells very nice, very soft, sweet, and smells of high quality. And I've actually been digging this one quite a lot. As I said, this smells very similar to Le Male Elixir Absolu, but this one feels a little bit softer, slightly less spicy in the opening, and feels a little bit more fruity. And another difference between this one and the original is the fact that on the dry down, Zayaan Gold develops this slight powderness, something that I don't pick up out of Le Male Elixir Absolu, but in the air they smell actually very similar. And just to quickly compare it with 9 PM Elixir, I'm going to do a full comparison at some point in the future, but definitely Zayaan Gold smells a little bit closer to Le Male Elixir Absolute compared to 9pm Elixir. 9pm Elixir feels more like an inspiration, whereas this one basically feels like a straight up glow. In the air smells very similar. Overall, the quality is good. It's a nice, enjoyable scent profile that's great for cold weather, in my opinion, especially for the night time. Performance wise, it's a good performing scent, but having watched some videos about this one before I actually was able to purchase it, I expected a little bit more, to be totally honest with you. Now, total longevity is not bad. I've been getting around about 8 hours of performance out of it, which is okay in my opinion, a good performing scent. But where this lacks is the projection. Just feels overall a little bit softer. So it stays on skin for a good amount of time, but definitely projection wise, it's slightly less projecting than I expected it to be. Again, keep that in mind. Not a bad performing scent, but I had slightly higher expectations. Price wise, I personally paid around about 32, 33 euros, so around about $35, $36 to get it. At that price point, I think it's an okay deal because it's priced pretty close to 9pm Elixir. 9pm Elixir I think is slightly pricier, but in my opinion you're getting a little bit better performing scent. But again, I'm going to leave the full comparison for a future video. But overall, still compared to the price of the original, this still costs around about I would say a third of the price of the original, so it seems a good deal. And since this smells pretty close to the original one, actually I think it's a good deal. Versatility wise, as I said in the beginning of the video, definitely more of a cold weather scent, definitely something more suited for nighttime usage, a night out, a date night, something like that. So definitely a fragrance for the cold weather. And at the end of the video, I'm going to try to summarize my sort of feelings and thoughts about Zayaan Gold. First of all, I think it's a very solid release from Khadlaj. It comes nicely packaged, it has a pressurized sprayer, it smells of high quality, it has decent performance. I think it's pretty fairly priced. So overall, this is a good fragrance and a good release from the brand of Khadlaj. But for some reason, I just don't feel like 100% on board with this one. Just it doesn't give me how to call it, like any thrills at all. It's just, to me, this just smells, and not smells, but feels like just another fragrance release. And to be honest, I don't fully see the hype about this fragrance. It's a good, very solid release, but nothing more than that. I expected this one to have better performance than it actually turned out to have. I also expected it to have a slightly more character, if that makes sense. Just feels a little bit dull. For example, 9pm Elixir is more spicy, or at least in the beginning used to be more spicy, and just overall has more of a character to it, and just thrills me a little bit more than Khadlaj Zayaan Gold. Again, I'm not going to bash this one because this is not a bad scent at all by any means, but I somehow had slightly higher expectations of this fragrance. Overall, I would say it's a solid release, but for me personally, nothing more than that. And so guys, in today's video, I reviewed a pretty new release from the brand of Khadlaj that's called Zayaan Gold. I hope that you found today's video interesting or useful or helpful. If you did, give it a like, and I also hope that you're going to join me in my next video for your dose of some fragrance content. And until then, stay safe and bye bye.